The Value of Life. Hi, I'm Dave Arnott, the Christian Economist. Thanks for joining me again. Well, I'm recording this on March 26th of 2020. We are in the middle of the pandemic about the coronavirus, and there's a discussion going on about how much people should be quarantined and how much they should use these shelter-at-home policies. Let me give you two quotes just from yesterday. New York Governor Mario Cuomo said, quote, "If one life is saved, I will be happy," end quote. His point is we should continue the quarantines and the shelter-at-home rules. On the opposite end of the spectrum, on the same day, President Donald Trump said, "We cannot let the cure be worse than the problem itself," end quote. Who's right? In this dilemma between saving lives and restarting the economy, who's right? And the answer may surprise you, because as Christians, we favor life. We think life is very important. But we also believe in a fallen world. I'm not going to give you the distinct answer yet. Let's think about this for a moment as we look at some examples. Matter of fact, here's an article from the Wall Street Journal yesterday. Quote, "As economic toll mounts, nation ponders trade-offs." The subtitle is, "The cost of confronting pandemic millions of jobs. Trillions in wealth lost to save potentially millions of lives," end quotes. And so which is more important, and how do we make this decision? Well, often I'll stand in the classroom and raise up one arm out to my side and say, "There's never been a one-armed economist," because he will say, "On the other hand," and then I raise my other arm. See, economists have two arms. This was the key that Henry Hazlitt was talking about in his important book, Economics in One Lesson. He said, you need to look past the first level decision onto the second level, and also, how does it affect everybody? And this is what we're caught up in today, in this decision about how much do we quarantine people to preserve life? How much do we allow people to work to produce economic benefits? So it's life versus economy. Here's another example. Sometimes this is being called as being on the horns of a dilemma. If you truly are on the horns of a dilemma, when you move from one, you lose some of it, you gain some of the other. When you gain some of one, you lose the other. This is absolutely an economic trade-off. In economics, we call this opportunity cost. You can't do two things. You have to trade off one for the other. And what's the opportunity cost? Here's an example we go through in high school football in Texas just about every summer. Boys will be out there playing football, and it's really hot. They're playing in August, getting ready for the season, and it's going to happen this August. One or two kids is going to die because of heat prostration. They do the best they can to protect them, to keep them in the shade, give them water. It is going to happen. And someone will say, we should outlaw football in Texas. Here's the Economist answer. If you took those boys off the football field, what would they be doing? Well, here's three answers: drinking alcohol, driving fast cars, and chasing women, sometimes all at the same time. Would you rather have them playing football or out drinking alcohol, chasing women, and driving fast cars? You'd rather have them playing football. Here's the point. If you outlawed football in Texas, the death rate amongst that demographic would go up, not down. And so losing a couple of lives a year is worth preserving the others. See, this is economics. You may not like it, but this is economics. So Sergei Seidamatov and I just turned in today the manuscript for our book, which we think is going to be called Biblical Economic Policies. Don't get too excited. It'll take a while for it to come out. In Chapter 2, we talk about 10 what we call biblical commandments of economics. And the one that we refer to quite often is called work is good. God wants us to work. But during quarantines and shelter-at-home policies, we're not working. And so should we work or should we not work? This is the increasingly important question that we ask. Well, I've got this friend, Kevin, who was a policeman in Fort Worth for many years. And Kevin's explaining to me one day, he says, you get the crime you pay for. I said, would you repeat that? He said, you get the crime you pay for. Think about it. Fort Worth could continue to hire more officers. With each officer they hired, crime would go down until it reached almost zero. He said, but you don't do that. You stop at some point and you say, okay, we've removed enough of the crime, knowing there's still going to be some. You know what? Kevin's never been in an economics class in his entire life, and he just gave one of the best explanations of what we call marginal utility. Each police officer you hire produces less marginal utility than the previous one. How do we apply this to the coronavirus? Each successive day you extend the quarantine and the shelter-at-home rules, the marginal utility is less. You are saving fewer lives with each day you extend it. This is how economics thinks, and God bless Kevin for understanding one of the most important concepts in economics. So if you look at a little book I have on my website, it's a little blue book called Economics in the Christian Worldview. One of the most important points I make in that book is that utopian plans are not in our wheelhouse. We do not believe in a perfect world. It is not perfect. We can't make it perfect. Can we make it better? Yes. We can make it better, but we accept that in a fallen world, bad things will happen. Look, there's an entire branch of economics called VSL, Value of Statistical Life. That's what these guys do for a living. For their entire life, they study what is the value of statistical life, and they come up with numbers. Here's a quote from them, from one of the authors in VSL. Value of statistical life measures are routinely used by the federal government to calculate the costs and benefits of a wide range of health and environmental regulations, which also come with trade-offs between, listen for it, between what? Public safety and economic cost, end quote. And they produce these numbers. The Environmental Protection Agency says a life is worth $9.1 million. The Food and Drug Administration says $7.9 million. The Department of Transportation says $9.2 million. The Department of Transportation, I'm sorry, that's a repeat just from a different year, $9.6 million. Average it out around 10. You may not like it, but in a real fallen world, we have to make difficult decisions. We have to choose along these horns of a dilemma between saving lives by sheltering in place or losing more lives but gaining more economy. And look, people, when we use the word economy, people somehow get the idea of this picture of the guy from Monopoly, the rotund guy smoking a cigar and wearing a top hat, that's what the economy is. No, by definition, the economy is the production and distribution of products and resources in a scarce environment. You know what one of those products is? Food and water and clothing and shelter. Those are just the physical things. That doesn't even approach the psychological and sociological needs, and I would say religious needs, that are met by working. We believe work is good. And so staying at home for some days is good. Going to work is good. How do you make this decision? This is a very difficult one to make. Matter of fact, in this VSL equation, they use this phrase which sounds like it comes straight from finance. The value of a man is the net present value of his future earnings. Well, net present value is what we do all the time to try to figure out why is a stock trading for one value today and another value tomorrow. Somebody is calculating the net present value of the future cash flows of that company. And we do it with humans too. Yeah. I knew this economist not well, but I knew him and he explained to me he did a study for the state of Oklahoma. They were trying to determine, is it worth it for the state to put a tornado shelter in the backyard of every home? Well, it would save lives. Oh, that's absolutely sure. But guess what? They used a VSL equation to determine, no, it's not worth it. The number of lives you save by putting in these shelters would be more than the cost of a life. The VSL, the value of statistical life. Yeah. So, look, the economy makes healthcare possible. Without the economy, we wouldn't have healthcare. See, it's people working so that they can produce value for what I call their neighbors. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. If you're producing value for your neighbors and making profit, that's what you use to pay for health care. That's why the system is there. It can't exist separate from the economy. Yeah. One of the best learnings I had for this, I took students from my university to the BRIC countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China. We were in India. We were at the U.S. consulate, and we have this great presentation by a lawyer who works India and U.S. culture. And so he's presenting to us the difference in American and Indian culture. And he's going through some PowerPoint slides. My daughter happened to be along on the trip. And at one point she interrupted him and said, "Excuse me, would you back up to the previous slide?" And he did. And she read, "Life is not valuable. Would you explain that, please?" And he said, "It's self-explanatory. In India, life is not valuable." We were astounded. We just stood for a few seconds without responding. "What do you mean life is not valuable?" And then it occurred to us. In the Indian Hindu belief system, you go around a circle. You come back for your next life. And so life is not valuable because they don't believe, as we Christians do, that your soul goes on for eternity, but your body ends. No, they think your body and your soul come back as something else. And if you've done well in this life, you will move up in the next life. And it was one of the most astounding things. See, here's the summary. Wish I had more time to talk about this today, but I got to go. Eastern religions, Buddhism and Hinduism, say the world is bad. Avoid it. Christianity says the world is bad. How can we make it better? Do you see the difference? Do you see the difference? We assume the world is bad. And the reason Angus Deaton's quote from The Great Escape is his book. He was a Nobel Prize winner in economics in 2015. The first line of his book is, "Life is better now than any time in history." Do you know why? Because for generations, Christians have looked at the world and said, it's bad. How do we jump into it and make it better? Not, how do we avoid it? And so to come around to a final answer to our question, Mario Cuomo was not stating the Christian worldview. See, life is valuable, but a life is not valuable. There's a difference. See, there's a difference. The second phrase assumes that it is a fallen world, and we cannot preserve every life. But we want to make the world better, and that's what Christians do, and that's why we live in the most prosperous age in history, and why the economy is life. The economy does produce water and food and clothing and shelter and social and psychological advantages, and it cures things like the coronavirus. There you go. The value of life. Well, I'm Dave Arnott, the Christian Economist, where our slogan is, fear God, tell the truth, earn a profit. See you next time.